Hello, everyone. This is Mike Anderson of Collision Advice. On behalf of Collision Advice and Subaru, thank you for joining us for our Part 2 webinar on behalf of Subaru on learning to research and researching to learn on how to utilize the Subaru Technical Information System website to ensure safe and proper repairs. First of all, everyone has been muted. However, questions are encouraged. To ask any questions during the webinar, please text them to my teammate, Tracy Dombrowski, at 571-458-0648. And please include your name and your organization so we can make sure we recognize you for the questions you've asked. In addition, please be advised that if for some reason the webinar runs long and you have to take care of a customer, we absolutely understand that. This webinar will be recorded and it will be posted on our Collision Advice YouTube page. Again, we'd like to say thank you to the team at Subaru for allowing us the honor and the privilege to actually share with you insights as to how to utilize their technical website. So, John Lancaster, I know you and several of your team members are with us on this webinar. Would you please take a moment to introduce yourself as well as any of your teammates, sir?
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having us. This is John Lancaster. I'm the National Wholesale Parts Manager. I'm also in charge of the collision certification program that we're rolling out. We've got Rick Miller, who's on the phone, who will be also joining us in our room shortly. And we've got JJ.
Hi, I'm JJ Marino. I'm here on the Subaru Technician Assistance Helpline.
Well, thank you, John, and to your teammates there at Subaru, and for Rick Miller from Wadsworth International. And again, JJ, thank you for also joining us. So with that said, let's jump into our webinar. First of all, we have to begin every webinar with just an overview of the antitrust guidelines. It is understood that in today's webinar, we will not discuss any issues that would violate antitrust guidelines. Avoiding violations of the antitrust laws is the responsibility and legal obligation of the business owner. Any discussion of current prices or discounts with a competitor should be avoided. In our industry, this includes discounts, time hourly rates, charges to insurance companies, individuals, fleet owners, dealers, or other shops that repair vehicles. Surveys of prices, discounts, and costs are permissible, but only under strict guidelines and only if they're not part of a conspiracy to fix prices or to otherwise restrain trade. Cost studies that lead to price fixing or price stabilizing agreements violate both the United States as well as any of our Canadian friends' antitrust laws. Remember, the prices charged must be calculated and determined by you, the business owner, alone. And these prices should take into account the cost of doing business and include allowances for a reasonable profit. All content of this webinar today is based on standard economic and management principles. Profit margins, labor rates, etc. used in this presentation or webinar are to be taken as examples only. And the intent of this workshop or webinar is to provide attendees with basic management skills, leaving them free to determine their own individual rates, profit percentages, and other operating management aspects of their businesses on a strictly independent basis using generally accepted management principles. Let's go ahead and begin. So why are we doing these webinars? As we've shared with you in the past, one of our concerns as an industry of collision advice is that shops are not researching home repair procedures every single time they fix a vehicle. And this is very concerning. You'll see in 2018, this year, that only 24.8% of shops are actually researching home repair procedures all the time, while 35.7% most of the time. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a concern for us because we feel at Collision Advice that we should be doing safe and proper repairs. And the only way to truly do that is to research the home repair procedures every single time you fix a vehicle. Now, what is our desired outcome of part 2 of this Subaru webinar? Well, we're going to hopefully continue to raise awareness with you as to the resources that Subaru offers to you to properly research home repair procedures. We're going to review with you, again, a quick recap because we covered this in the first part webinar last month. So if you missed it, please make sure you watch that. It's on our YouTube channel. But we're going to review with you some of the requirements of registering, logging in, and utilizing the Subaru STIS website. We're also going to share with you in this part 2 webinar some additional features under the Service and Diagnostics tab that we didn't review last month. We're also going to help you in this webinar how to identify one-time use parts in Subaru's OEM repair procedures. And at the end, we'll take a few questions for you about Subaru's certification program. Last but not least, one of the things we hope you will get value of is helping you, the collision repairer, to understand the value of actually being familiar with the vehicle's owner's manual that the owner gets on their Subaru. Now, a quick recap of last month's webinar. First of all, if you would like to access the Subaru position statements, they are not going to be found in Subaru's STIS. If you want to access Subaru's position statements, we would encourage you to go to www.oemOneStop.com or www.crashrepairinfo.com. Now, if you go to OEM1stop.com, which is our preference of choice, you will see at the top of that page what will say position statements. When you click on that, you will see position statements not just from Subaru, but all vehicle manufacturers. One of the things we'd like to encourage you to do is be sure to go to that OEM1stop.com to make sure you visit Subaru's recently revised statement on scanning of vehicles. Now, again, a continued recap of last month's webinar. How do you access Subaru's repair procedures? Well, first of all, you have to pay to subscribe to their website. So you would access that through techinfo.subaru.com. You will see here, this is what the screen would look like if you were to log in. Once you create an account, you will log in utilizing your email address and your password that you can set yourself. Also, a quick reminder from last month's webinar is that Subaru strongly suggests that you use Internet Explorer as your browser when accessing STIS. Now, I will tell you, if you're ever in STIS and you find that none of the hyperlinks work, it's probably because either A, you're not using Internet Explorer, or B, you've got your pop-up blockers turned on. So let's go ahead and continue to give you a quick recap and an overview of last month's webinar. How do you search on TechInfo? Well, first of all, when you go into TechInfo, you're going to see that they use 3 icons that you need to be familiar with. The first is the little down-looking arrow with the line under it. That allows you to download the PDF that Subaru has of the OEM repair procedures or the specific document you're looking at. You also note, if you attended last month's webinar, that if you ever see a star, that means that you've saved that document. So again, if it's a document you revisit on a regular basis, make sure you save it under your favorites. And last but not least, we also covered in last month's webinar that you can only have a certain amount of saved documents. And if you ever need to remove one of those to make room for a newer one that you've ran across, you would just use the X to delete it. Now keep in mind, if you have any questions, please text them to Tracy at 571-458-0648. Now, one of the things that we also shared with you in our last meeting, and I apologize for the little pop-up there, one of the things that we actually shared with you in our last month's webinar is that when you go into Subaru STIS, you have several different documents that you can view. You will notice on the left-hand side of the screen, it says publication type. And this is where, my friends, you can actually go and you can go through and you can access things such as the service manual or the owner's manual, which we're going to cover today. Another document we're going to cover today is Subaru's Tech Tips newsletter. We found great value in that, and we're going to share that with you today. Now, when you go to Subaru's website, you have the ability to put the VIN number in, and you can utilize just the last 8 of the VIN or the full 17, and that allows you to pull up the documents specific to that vehicle that you're working on. We love at Collision Advice to use dual monitors. And why is that? Because what we like to do is we like to take, and if we have the estimate on one screen, we can just right click and copy on the VIN number, go right over to our second monitor where we have Subaru's STIS pulled up, put the VIN number in and just copy and paste it. Now, if you don't have a VIN, you have the ability to do a manual search where you would just go and select the model year and then the model of the vehicle and the trim package, etc. Now, again, if you don't know the VIN, that's a great feature, but we do encourage you, it's always better and you're going to get the best search results if you put the VIN in to pull up your OEM repair procedures. Now, you'll see right here, the little icon we showed you with the down arrow with the line under it. That's so that I can download the document. Now, we'll give you a hint. Last night, I was actually looking up the OEM repair procedures on a Subaru under the service manual, and I actually found it had over 7,000 pages in one document. So it may take you a few moments to download it, but kudos to Subaru for being so detailed in their information. Now, today we're going to take and we're going to share with you some insights that we did not cover in last month's webinar. The first thing that we're going to share with you today is about the Service Diagnostics tab. So you'll see at the very top, when you log into Subaru, into STIS, you will see where it says Service Diagnostics. Now, when you select that, what you're going to do is you're going to see the last 6 years of vehicles up on your screen. So you'll see it shows 2019, 18, 17, 16, 15, and 14. This is the last 6 years. Now, if you need a vehicle that's older than that, such as a 2010, you would just go right here where it says View Full Archives. And that would allow you to look up an older Subaru. Now, once I go and I log into this, you're going to see several tabs across the top. What we're going to do in today's webinar is we're going to share with you, which is in each one of these tabs. So we're going to start first of all with the Index tab. Now, I really love this Index tab, and I'm going to show you why. Because when I go to the Index tab, it pulls up like the alphabets, A through Z. And if I'm looking for a specific document on a specific component, I can just select the letter that that component might start with. Let me give you an example. For example, one of the things that I think we as collision repairers need to do is anytime we disconnect a battery on a vehicle, we need to research what the procedures are that may be required after we reconnect the battery. So in this case, I would have just gone up to the alphabet you see in the top left corner, and I would have selected the B. Well, when I selected B, you would see that it pulls up all these different words that start with the letter B that would be in Subaru's STIS. In this instance, it says battery, removal, installation, inspection, and charge. Once I select any of the red print you see, that is a hyperlink. Once I select that, you will see that Subaru says, when you disconnect a battery and reconnect it, these are some things you need to do. And what more importantly it says is if you don't do these things on the left-hand side, then the things on the right side will not work. One of the things I'd like you to note here is that if you look at number 6, it says when you disconnect the battery and reconnect it, you have to go back and initialize the power window system. If you don't do that, it will not work. So ladies and gentlemen, as you will see throughout this webinar, it's not just about scanning, it's also about researching anytime we disconnect a battery. So ladies and gentlemen, another thing I want to point out to you is if you look at number 6 where it says power window system and you look to the right, when you see the blue print, that's a hyperlink that takes you to the procedure on how to actually perform that operation, such as the initialization of the power window system. Now, the next tab you're going to see at the top is the DTC search tab. Now, I really love this tab, and I'll tell you why. Because when you go to scan a vehicle, pre or post, and it gives you a diagnostic trouble code, a DTC, often referred to as a fault code, what I will do is I will select this option, DTC search. From there, you will see a little box at the top, and in the box at the top, you will put your DTC in. When you put your DTC in, and then you hit search, what it will do is it will actually bring up for you, you'll see right here, I put my DTC in, B1000, and then when I did a search, it came up and told me what that code included or what that code means. Now, you know, a lot of times people will ask me, Mike, what do you think I should charge for scanning? Well, the question I tell them is, ladies and gentlemen, it's not my job to tell you how much you should charge for scanning. But what I will tell you is I do believe you should separate your diagnostic time from your scanning time. Because the scanning, while it's going to be a pretty basic procedure, what's really time consuming is the amount of time that it takes to research the DTCs. If I have a vehicle that has 7 DTCs, I'm going to have to actually go through, put the DTC in that code. I'm going to have to search and see what that means. Well, how much time that takes me depends on whether there's 1 code, 5 codes, or 100 codes. But we really love this feature in Subaru's STIS because it gives us the ability to research each individual DTC and as to what that means. Now, the next tab we want to share with you is the wiring diagram. Now, again, as a collision repairer, if you have to search a wiring diagram, you would select that option. And when you select it, you see it gives you very detailed information as to the wiring schematics for that specific vehicle. This is one of the reasons why we feel that you should use the VIN number when you search, so it pulls up a wiring diagram for that specific vehicle. Now, our next tab is print. This is if you want to print anything. Any document I'm looking at, I can print it. I can print it to paper on a printer, or I can print it and save it as a PDF. So again, I think everybody knows what the print option gives you to do. Now, the next tab is new car info. This allows you to open up any new car information manuals that correspond to the service manual you're viewing. So ladies and gentlemen, as you start to get newer vehicles coming to your shop, like a 2019 Subaru, I think this is very critical that you review the new car info for that vehicle make and model. Why? Because it's going to help you to know some of the options that are on that vehicle that you may need to be familiar with to ensure that they're working, whether it's a safety or comfort feature. So I'm not saying that you need to look it up on every car, but I think when new cars are introduced, this is a really important tab for you as an estimator to review. Now, the next tab is the help tab, right? This brings up a PDF document that gives you instructions on how to navigate the STIS site. Now, obviously, we did a webinar last month that was an hour long. This month's webinar is going to be about 70 or 80 minutes, right? So hopefully you'll watch those 2 webinars to get a very intimate feel from a collision repair perspective on how to utilize STIS. But I would also encourage you to go to the help screen and read that tab. And what it will do is it will walk you through how to interpret and navigate the STIS website. Now, there was a great thing that we saw when we went to the help tab. And that is if you look down here at the bottom, it shows me and it says this little star. And one of the things that we found that Subaru does is anytime you see a star, which you'll see hopefully where my cursor's at, that star means it's a one-time use part within Subaru's STIS. Now, keep in mind, one-time use parts are not going to be referenced in the electronic parts catalog. The one-time use parts are only going to be referenced in the OEM repair website through Subaru STIS. So it's critical that you research the OEM repair procedures through Subaru so you can identify one-time parts. So again, what does a star mean? A star means do not reuse that part, you need to order a new one. Now, the next thing we're going to walk you through is the service manual and the option that says general description. So again, you'll see at the top, we still have all of our websites, links, index, DTC search, wiring diagram, print, new car info, and help. We've already covered this for you. Now below that, you see some other areas that are in gray. We're going to now walk you through which each one of these tabs means across the top. The first one we're going to click on and we're going to look at is the general description tab. Now, when you click on the general description tab, this is going to give you some repair precautions that you may need to know as a collision repairer, either as a technician or as an estimator. So we found that reviewing this, a quick review of the repair contents, anytime you go into Subaru's STIS for that specific vehicle make and model, we absolutely believe is a must. Now, the next thing you will continue to see is as we scroll down through the general description tab and we started looking through some of this, we found some very interesting information. Now, again, on the left-hand side of your screen in the blue box, you will see all the different options under the general description tab. General description, repair things that I need to know in regards to the air condition or the tire pressure monitor sensor, whatever the case may be. But let me show you one that we saw right here. And that was when we clicked on the transmission tab. You'll see where it says preparation for learning, right? So how are we going to, what's the learning process? Well, that's where we're going to use a diagnostic scan tool from Subaru. But look what it says. It says preparation for learning. Warm up or cool down until the ATF temperature is displayed on the Subaru Select Monitor, which is their factory scan tool, of 104 to 149 degrees Fahrenheit. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that we're really concerned about from Collision Advice is that when you go to do a diagnostic scan with the Subaru factory scan tool, and we recognize that some of you are also using the Aztec to connect to a Subaru factory scan tool, is are you allowing the vehicle to get to operating temperature before you perform a scan? Ladies and gentlemen, this would be a great example from Subaru's own repair procedures that gives you a very specific temperature. So when you pull a vehicle in, allow that vehicle to get to operating temperature. Now, if I'm in Miami, Florida or Fort Lauderdale, you know what? Maybe it doesn't take that long for a vehicle to get to operating temperature. But if I'm in Montana or Minnesota in the middle of the winter, or Alaska, right, where some of our good friends are at up there, it's important you allow the vehicle to get to operating temperature. And the way you can tell if it's an operating temperature is to make sure you use your Subaru Select Monitor OEM factory scan tool. Now, continuing on through the general description tab, you also see there's a section here that says electrical. Now, again, when you go into the electrical, this is where you also find, again, for a second time, some of the things that you need to think about if you ever disconnect a battery. Now, keep in mind, originally, I went to index and I selected the option B for the letter, then I selected battery, and that took me to the screen you're seeing right here, but you would also find that under the electrical tab. So you might want to make a note of this right now. If you're a collision repairer, anytime you disconnect a battery, and reconnect it on a Subaru, make sure you do a search for the battery, and that will give you these things that need to be redone. And again, that's going to be very vehicle make and model specific. And some of these operations may require the use of the Subaru factory scan tool. Again, if you go and you click on the blue link that I just shared with you, under the power window diagnostics, this would tell you the initialization process. So again, my friends, if you disconnect a battery, make sure you research what procedures are required when you reconnect the battery, and you will find that under the general description tab, and then you will go to electronics. All right, continuing down through here under the general description tab, you will see where it says repair contents. This is another example of some of the information we'll give you. For example, if you're going to disconnect an electrical wiring connector, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. This may be great for you to print out for any entry-level technicians you have that are learning how to disassemble a vehicle so they do not disconnect or damage the electrical connector. Continuing on through this general description tab, you're going to see under there something that says recommended materials. So again, we're under general description. We scroll down on the left-hand side, you'll see where it says recommended materials. This is going to tell you like what's the right type of oil you should use, what's the right type of antifreeze you're going to use. But you'll also notice that it also specifies that there's specific urethane that is required whenever you remove a glass on a Subaru. So we encourage you that any type of chemical you're going to use, whether it's a panel bonding adhesive, any type of urethane, or any type of oil or antifreeze, anything like that, make sure that it is a product that has been approved by Subaru. If not, it could actually void out the warranty. All right, Now, here's another thing we saw under this general description tab that we really, really, really liked. Don't forget, if you have any questions, text them to Tracy. But under the general description tab, we saw something that said pre-delivery inspection, PDI procedure. Now, this is really for people that take and they sell new cars, right? And it's saying when you go to sell a new car, make sure all of these things work properly before the consumer takes possession of the new vehicle. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, I really found this document interesting, and I'll tell you why. Because as I started looking at this, and I found that a dealership, okay, before they sell me my new Subaru as a consumer, it says make sure you check the appearance of the vehicle, make sure you check the instrument panel, make sure you check the tires. Ladies and gentlemen, I gotta tell you, I think some of these items in this pre-delivery inspection, PDI, that dealerships use when they sell a new car, I think a lot of these should be incorporated into our quality control process checklist when we fix a vehicle after the repair. I mean, I really thought this made a lot of sense, right? For example, make sure that the vehicle, isn't covered with any dirt or anything. Make sure the tires, have the right tire pressure in them. It says make sure you check the child safety lock. How many of us have ever delivered a vehicle to a consumer and the consumer comes back and says, my back door won't open from the inside, and we flick that little switch. So ladies and gentlemen, I would encourage you to go to the general description tab, go to where it says PDI, pre-delivery inspection, print this out and consider taking and incorporating some of these into your quality control processes or your check-in form that you have when we QC the vehicle after it's been in an accident and we've repaired it. As you continue down through this, you'll see, ladies and gentlemen, they've got a lot of things on this checklist that I think that we need to be thinking about as collision repairers. And keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, some of these you may not be able to manually check, but it may require the use of the Subaru factory scan tool to do an output or functionality test to ensure that all of the safety and comfort features are working properly. Again, as you go down this pre-delivery inspection, look at this right here at the top. It says before they sell the car to the customer, it says when performing the check one access key at a time. And then it says the following inspections show the initial settings. When the settings are different from the initial settings, use the Subaru Select Monitor to check the details of each setting for inspections. And it says body control diagnostics. Ladies and gentlemen, if we disconnect the battery, we've got several components like the door taken apart or the tailgate, and the consumer uses that key to unlock or lock their doors. It says right here you need to use the Subaru Select Monitor to ensure that everything's working properly. Like while carrying the access key, check that the room light illuminates when you move close to the front door handles. Ladies and gentlemen, when we take a door apart and we put it back on, are you really making sure that all of these key functions work on the door? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's telling me right here the best way to do that is to use a Subaru Select Monitor, which again is the OEM factory scan tool. Now, if some of you are using Aztec, which is a vendor recognized by Subaru, make sure that you tell them that you'd like them to do these things for you as well. We continue on down here, and what else does it tell that you do? It says, look, before you even sell the car, make sure you read the diagnostic trouble codes and make sure that no codes are detected. So, ladies and gentlemen, I could spend all day just on this pre-delivery inspection, but I think there's a lot of great content in here that shops need to review and incorporate into their quality control checklist. Now, let's talk about the next tab. The next tab is the suspension tab, right? Now, when I go into the suspension tab, and it says engine/suspension, we're just using suspension in our example here in today's webinar. One of the things we found in here as we went to the suspension tab, it said, caution, do not reuse the valve and screw. Replace the valve and screw with a new part, even when reusing the transmitter. So if you were to go into Subaru's own repair procedures, it says right here, you need to put a new valve stem on the vehicle every time you put a new wheel on there. Again, this is some of the information that you will find under the suspension tab. Now let's go to the next tab, which is steering. And again, we're moving through this very quickly, but understand this is a webinar to give you some insight, but we hope that this will encourage you to go back and navigate STIS and actually play with it, because repetition is key. Now look right here what we saw. We went under the steering tab, and look what it says. It says when the wheel alignment has been adjusted, perform the following adjustment. Lane keep assist learning value clear for vehicles with eyesight. And then it says VDC sensor midpoint setting mode. So ladies and gentlemen, when we go and we actually do anything like we R&I a steering rack or suspension to replace a frame rail or an apron, or maybe we do a four-wheel alignment on this vehicle because the wheel or tire got replaced, we need to make sure that these vehicles' functions, for example, eyesight or the VDC, we need to make sure that all that's working properly, ladies and gentlemen. And again, if you click on those blue hyperlinks, that will lead you to how to perform that specific operation so your technicians do it properly. Now let's go into the airbag system and seatbelt system. Well, we went ahead and clicked on here. So again, we're looking at all these great options across the top, and we clicked on airbag system and seatbelt system. And look what it says. Do not reuse mounting bolts and nuts. And not only that, ladies and gentlemen, but it gives us very specific torque specs for the curtain airbag sensor. Now I got to tell you, keep in mind, anytime we replace a quarter panel, or if we even repair a quarter panel, Subaru states that you shouldn't do any cutting or grinding or any strong impacts near these components. We also know well that you shouldn't weld near an electrical component. So if you R&I an airbag for replacing a quarter panel, my question is, are you actually replacing the mounting bolts and nuts? Because if not, you're not doing a safe and proper repair. But more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, is it gives us very specific torque specifications for these. And I have to tell you, as a collision repair industry expert, at least I hope I'm an expert or above knowledgeable, I don't believe a lot of people are actually looking up the torque specs when they go to reinstall these airbags or airbag sensors. So make sure you're looking that up for your technicians as an estimator. Now, as I continue down through this airbag system and seatbelt section, here's one of the other things I saw. Now look down here where it says number 2, right? Number 2. Actually, you know what? Let's just go up to here where you see this little spray can getting sprayed. Look at the bullet point at the top of your page. It says, when painting or performing sheet metal work on the vehicle, remove the following parts. Performing the work without removing the parts may cause secondary malfunction. And look what it says. It says if you're working on the front part of the vehicle or you're painting the front part of the vehicle, meaning the apron, the front fender, or the radiator side panel, which is a baffle, it says you need to remove the front sub-sensor airbag of the airbag system and the wiring harness. So ladies and gentlemen, right here it says if you're going to be repairing the apron, replacing the apron, repairing the core support, or replacing the core support, you need to remove the airbag sensor as well as set the wiring harness out of the way. Look what else it says down here. It says side or its vicinity of the vehicle, including the side sill. Now, what's a side sill? That's a rocker panel, right? It says if you're going to be doing some type of repair or replace on the rocker panel, center pillar, or even the doors, you need to consider removing the side airbag sensor and maybe even the overhead sensor and setting the wire harness back. In addition, it says before starting parts replacement, if the following parts are deformed or damaged, replace with new parts, airbag sensors, etc. Again, ladies and gentlemen, where did I find this at? Go to the airbag system and seatbelt system section, and from there, go to caution. All right. Anytime you do a repair, go to the caution and see what types of things you may need to remove if you're doing any painting or even repair in that vicinity. Now, here was something else I really loved about this, right? And I kind of highlighted there for you in the box on the right-hand side. It says if a vehicle is involved in a collision, even if it's a slight collision, right? Even if it's a minor collision, be sure to check the following systems. And it gives us a pretty comprehensive list here. It says if it's a frontal collision, now keep in mind, it says even if it's a slight collision, you need to replace the following parts with new ones. And then it says you need to visually inspect the following items and replace any damaged part with a new one. And as we go down here, ladies and gentlemen, this is a pretty healthy thing. Not to mention, if you go down to the blue where it says occupant detection, it tells us there's certain procedures we need to do. So ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to restate, I'm just the messenger here. Subaru says that the vehicle's involved in a collision, even if it's a slight collision. So make sure, ladies and gentlemen, make sure any Subaru that's in an accident, you go into the airbag system and seatbelt system section of STIS, make sure you go to the inspection tab and then go down and make sure you're visually inspecting these things. And in some cases, you may even have to take and replace some components. Continuing on down through here, you also see where it says if a vehicle's in an accident, you need to actually check the steering system. It says make sure you check the driver's seat. It says the passenger seat and even other parts. So ladies and gentlemen, we need to make sure we do these things. Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, I understand that sometimes insurance companies don't want to pay for things. I get that. But at the end of the day, my question for you is, it starts with us. We must accept personal responsibility. And if you're not educated, how can we blame the insurance company for that, right? It all starts with us, ladies and gentlemen. Continuing on down there, here's another thing that I saw that was really awesome. Again, I'm under the airbag system and seatbelt system. You'll see where it says inspection tab, and look what it says. Refer to inspection locations after a collision. If you click on that, that takes you to a hyperlink to the document I just shared with you. Now, you might want to write that down, right? Write the word inspection down. Because if you're ever in STIS and you just do a search, type in the word inspection, it would bring this document up for you. Now, let's go to the next tab. This is under the service manual tab, and this is body and electrical wiring system and diagnostics. Again, you'll see right here that you'll see it says when any of the following operations has been done, and that's up here at the top left in the little red, when any of the following operations have been done, be sure to perform a re-zeroing of the occupant detection system. Now, keep in mind that blue will hyperlink to tell me the exact process I need to do that. But it says anytime you replace the ODS or remove the passenger seat, or loosen the passenger seat bolt. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of things that we need to make sure we're researching anytime we fix a vehicle, okay? Now, this is another little search term you might want to write down is occupant detection, right? Write that down, occupant detection, or re-zero. These are some things you can type into the search feature that will help you to find these a little bit quicker. Now let's go into the diagnostics tab. As we go into the diagnostics tab, this is where we would find some information about the occupant detection system, or re-zero, right? And you'll see what it says it requires. It requires what? Connect the Subaru Select Monitor. You know, I always have to laugh because I always had this, some people in my classes that say, well, Mike, the OEM repair procedures don't say I have to use the OEM scan tool. Ladies and gentlemen, you notice right here it says connect the Subaru Select Monitor, not connect the aftermarket scan tool. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to make sure that the only way we can verify a vehicle safely and properly repaired is using the factory scan tool, or in this case, again, the Aztec, because they're not a scan tool. They use the Subaru Select Monitor at their headquarters in Plano, Texas. Now, again, as we click on these blue hyperlinks, you'll see that it actually walks us through some questions we also need to make sure that we're asking ourselves. Now, one of the things I loved about Subaru's STIS website is it's very interactive. So it says, like right here, did you interview the customer? Well, if I select yes, that takes me to another document. If I select no, then it takes me to another document. So I really love the way this is interactive, and depending on what options I select, yes or no, depends on the screen it takes to me next. You'll see, for example, in this case, it says cruise control checklist for interview, and it tells me some things that I may need to ask the customer. So again, ladies and gentlemen, when a customer brings their Subaru in for repairs after a collision, I think there's some great content in here that might help us to ask the customer or interview them that we can gain some information for a safe and proper repair. As I continue through this, you'll see that their questionnaire is pretty lengthy. So again, ladies and gentlemen, here's one of the other things I want to show you. Look up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth red bullet down, red bullet point, it says, be sure to record the following data for performing the clear memory, right? It says data must be obtained before inspection because the clear memory operation deletes previous faults and temporary stop history. And ladies and gentlemen, what's telling me I need to do is I need to actually record some data before I clear any fault codes in this specific instance, which is the eyesight. So make sure, ladies and gentlemen, it's not about just hooking up a scan tool and clearing the codes. It's recording the data, whether it's freeze frame data or snapshot data, so we can do a proper diagnostic procedure to ensure a safe and proper repair. Again, continuing on through this with the eyesight, you will see that it tells me there's a lot of things that I need to inspect. Now, again, how did I find this? Well, you could actually just go to eyesight, type that into the search feature, and it would bring some of these documents up for you. Now, again, here was something else I saw was pretty interesting, right? So I'm looking at eyesight. Now, eyesight is a really cool feature that most Subarus are going to have, if not already, on the newer Subarus. And look what it said down here. It said front wipers. And it says use Subaru genuine part only for wiper blade. It says using a part other than a Subaru factory wiper blade could affect the recognition of the stereo camera, which may cause the eyesight feature not to operate properly. Ladies and gentlemen, it's important that we use OEM parts, even on something as simple as a wiper blade, because using an aftermarket wiper blade, ladies and gentlemen, from your local, whatever it is, store, could cause this eyesight feature not to work properly. So again, ladies and gentlemen, that's why we need to understand with a lot of these new safety and comfort features, OEM parts have been tested to meet certain specifications to ensure that the vehicle works as intended. Now, I want to share a little something with you, right? When I was going through the Subaru STIS website, Subaru had told me up front, right? John Lancaster and his team and Nicole, they had said, Mike, we use a star as our one-time use symbol for one-time use parts. We use a star. Totally get it, John. I'm going through Subaru's website and I'm playing with it. And all of a sudden I look up this vehicle that's called a Subaru BRZ. And I go in there and I find a black dot. And I'm like, wait a minute, Toyota uses a black dot. Am I logged into Toyota instead of Subaru? And I was a little bit confused, and I reached out to some of the team at Subaru, and they said, you know what, Mike, we actually did a joint venture with Toyota, and on those OEM repair procedures, just for the Subaru BRZ, we actually will have a different look and feel, and guess what? Yes, we do use a black dot. So let me share this with you, ladies and gentlemen. Every Subaru that you research on repair procedures on, they're going to use a black star as a symbol for one-time use part, except for the BRZ. Now, when you go to the BRZ, you will notice this has a different look and feel than all of the other Subaru service manuals and OEM documents we pulled up. So let me slow down a little bit, right? the BRZ was a joint venture between Subaru and Toyota. That is the only Subaru that you will actually see this look and feel for the OEM repair procedures, right? And if I go and I click on this, for example, the body exterior, you will see that the look and feel is different. That's because it was a joint venture with Toyota and it's kind of modeled after Toyota's TIS. Now, as I go through this, one of the things you will see is the same thing again. It says that if I disconnect the battery, I have to reinitialize the power window. And again, you'll see step by step in regards to how to properly do that. And again, that is on the BRZ. You also see that again, just like in the Subaru, right? And everything else we've shown you, anytime you see something in blue, it will normally it's a hyperlink. In this case, the blue is not a hyperlink. It's just like a precaution note to you. And the BRZ, anytime you see this little red finger pointing, that will actually be a hyperlink for you. Now, again, Subaru uses a star for one-time use parts, but if you're in the BRZ, they use a black dot, and that's the symbol for a non-reusable part on the BRZ. You'll see, for example, here, every time you were to R&I a rear vision on this vehicle, much like replacing a quarter panel, you R&I the back glass, for several parts that are non-reusable. You'll see here that if you were to R&I a headlamp on a BRZ, you will see that the headlamp gasket is non-reusable. You'll see here that the door vapor barrier is non-reusable. So again, don't want to beat this thing up too much. Just want you to understand again, ladies and gentlemen, every Subaru symbol for non-reusable parts is a star with the exception of the BRZ. Now again, when I go to the BRZ, you'll see that it also has a little bit of a look and feel different than how you're navigating the other Subaru OEM repair procedures through STIS. Again, you'll see right here that, again, if I was to put a DTC in, it would also tell you, just like the other Subaru stuff, though, it says, if you get this fault code, these things over here are the probable cause. And again, if I click on the little red finger that's pointing, that would actually take me to how to investigate this and drill down into it further. Again, just taking you through this, giving you a little bit of a feel for how the BRZ Subaru STIS procedures absolutely work. Now again, you will see right here that it still references the Subaru Select Monitor, which is the factory scan tool for the occupant detection system. Okay, now a couple other things I want to show you here. One of the things we found in all of the Subaru vehicles that we researched is it said there is a wait time after you disconnect the battery. You'll see right here at the bottom where it says, warning, after disconnecting the battery ground terminal, do not start the work before waiting 60 seconds. What we found is that depending on the Subaru you're working on, there will be different wait times before you can begin repairs. So don't just jump right on the vehicle after you disconnect the battery. Give it a little bit of a time, ladies and gentlemen, to make sure that you allow it to power down. You will see up here the above warning. It says the airbag and pre-tensioner system are fitted with a backup power supply. If you start the work within 60 seconds after disconnecting the bound, the airbag may be activated. So ladies and gentlemen, make sure you don't start on the vehicle until you adhere to the proper wait time that Subaru dictates for you in STIS. Now, another thing we saw down here under the BRZ was it says if the airbag has been activated, replace the front door impact sensor with a new one. So understand, if the airbag is activated or deploys, you still need to replace the door impact sensor for the airbag, even if the door is not damaged, okay? So again, and it also says do not reuse the bolt and nut. So again, ladies and gentlemen, it's important that we don't just rely on the estimating systems to tell us when an airbag deploys, replace these components. We need to research some repair procedures because in this instance, you actually have to replace the front door impact sensor. Now you will also see something else that says down here, down where my red arrow's at, it says the pin section, counter rotation part of the curtain airbag sensor right hand is easily damaged. When loosening the nut, hold the curtain airbag sensor by hand. And then it says do not apply strong impact to the curtain airbag sensor. If strong impact is applied to the curtain airbag sensor right-hand side, replace it with a new one. So ladies and gentlemen, if you have a vehicle that gets hit hard in this area, you may need to replace this sensor even if it doesn't look damaged. So you say, well, Mike, how do I know if it's damaged? The insurance company doesn't want to pay for it. That's where you would use your Subaru OEM factory scan tool to perform an output or functionality test to see if a DTC returns. Now again, very, very cool list of procedures here that you'll find under the BRZ. And again, it tells you if you replace these parts, these are some procedures that are required. So look right here what it says. It says if I replace the steering column, or if I replace the power steering computer assembly, then I need to do a 0-point calibration. Again, ladies and gentlemen, these are some things that we need to be researching. So how would you find these? You're going to see up here where it says setting procedures. This would be a key search word that you might want to utilize when you're in Subaru's STIS, where it says setting procedures. So you might want to write that down as just a search feature to get you to this document pretty quickly. Now, another thing that I saw here that was very interesting is that it tells me before I can actually aim the headlights on this BRZ, I have to make sure that the vehicle is parked on a level surface and that the fuel tank is filled, as well as the appropriate amount of oil and coolant, as well as to make sure that the tire pressure is where it's supposed to be at. In addition, what else does it say? It says have one person get in the driver's seat. So ladies and gentlemen, those days of aiming a headlight, and I hope, by gosh, none of you guys are doing this, where we just pull it up and see how it looks on a wall. That's not enough anymore, ladies and gentlemen. In this case, to aim the headlights on this specific Subaru, I have to make sure that there's no luggage in the trunk, the fuel tank's full, got a right amount of oil and coolant, and I have the right tire pressure, and someone is sitting in the driver's seat. And then, ladies and gentlemen, that's when I will take and aim or align my headlight. So some pretty cool stuff here from Subaru. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the owner's manual. As I shared with you, ladies and gentlemen, based on all the OEM manufacturers that we've had the pleasure and honor of doing OEM webinars for monthly, one of the things I've learned is the value of reviewing the owner's manual with the consumer when they bring their vehicle in. Now, every OEM manufacturer, specifically in this case, Subaru, so let's say that Ms. Dabrowski comes in, and I'm like, Ms. Dabrowski, before you drop off your Subaru, do you mind if we go over your owner's manual with you together? And she may or may not have it in her glove box. If she doesn't, I can go to Subaru's STIS and I can actually print out her owner's manual for her. Now you say, well, Mike, why do you got to go over the owner's manual with the customer before they drop their car off? Well, I'm going to show you. Look what it says in the owner's manual right here, right? In the owner's manual, in this specific Subaru module, module 1, page 12 in this owner's manual, what does it say? It says replace all seatbelt assemblies, including retractors and attaching hardware worn by occupants of a vehicle that has been in a serious accident. The entire assembly should be replaced even if the damage is not obvious. Ladies and gentlemen, do you think this is something that we should be reviewing with the customer when they drop their vehicle off? Well, I think it is. But more importantly is, are you replacing the seatbelts on this specific Subaru where it states that in this specific owner's manual? So ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you to start becoming familiar with the owner's manual as well as the OEM repair procedures on any vehicle that you're going to fix, no matter the OEM, but specifically on Subaru. Now look what else it says right here, right? Again, this is in the owner's manual. Look what it says right here in this little red box. It says, do not modify, remove, or strike the seatbelt retractor assemblies equipped with seatbelt pretensioners surrounding area. This could result in accidental activation of the seatbelt pretensioners or can make the system inoperative, possibly resulting in serious injury. Seatbelt pretensioners have no user serviceable parts. So ladies and gentlemen, what is it saying right here? It's saying do not modify, remove, or strike. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to be doing any type of repair in the vicinity of a seatbelt, you need to remove it. Do not be doing hammering and dialing and beating and banging or pulling anywhere in the vicinity of a seatbelt. You need to remove it. Let's see what else it says right here. Again, I'm still in the owner's manual. Look right here in the red box on the left-hand side. It says, if your vehicle has sustained impact, this may affect the proper function of the Subaru Advanced Frontal Airbag System. Have your vehicle inspected at your Subaru dealer. Do not use the front passenger seat while driving the vehicle to your Subaru dealer. So ladies and gentlemen, here's the deal, right? It says if the vehicle sustained impact, you need to ensure that the frontal airbag system is working properly. You need to have it inspected. Well, how do you think a dealership inspects the airbag system? They use a scan tool. They use a scan tool to perform an output or functionality test. So ladies and gentlemen, some of the other things I loved about this owner's manual is it helps the owner to understand how the occupant detection system works, which means in often cases, we may have to do some type of calibration to the seat sensor. Now look what else it says right here. In this box, and again, I'm still in the owner's manual. It says after deployment, the SRS airbag immediately starts to deflate so that the driver's vision is not obstructed and the driver's ability to maintain control of the vehicle is not impaired. Now look at this right here. It says the time required from detecting impact to the deflation of the SRS airbag after deployment is shorter than the blink of an eye. Blink your eyes real quick, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, do you understand we're working on vehicles that if we do not do a safe and proper repair, we don't calibrate things properly, or we don't identify things that are proper. We have less than the blink of an eye. That's not much wiggle room. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why we need to ensure that we're doing pre and post scans on Subarus, as well as making sure that during an output functionality test and we're using the right parts and the right repair procedures, because you know what? Deployment is shorter than the blink of an eye. Again, all of this comes out of the owner's manual. Now, don't forget, if you have any questions, make sure you text them to Tracy Dombrowski, my teammate, at 571-458-0648. Now, continuing through there, this was really cool. This was in the owner's manual. Probably has nothing to do with your collision repair, but I thought it was really cool and I wanted to show it to you. When I was going through the owner's manual, it says, when traveling in an airplane, do not press the button of the access key fob. If any button of the access key fob is pressed, radio waves are emitted and may affect the operation of the airplane. When carrying the access key fob in a bag, take measures to prevent the buttons. Ladies and gentlemen, I travel over 300 days a year on the road. If you fly on my plane and you got a Subaru key, make sure you look out for it. Again, I just thought it was pretty cool. Not really nothing to do with collision repairs, but ladies and gentlemen, make sure we do that. Now, look what else it says in the owner's manual. It says after the vehicle battery is discharged or replaced, initialization of the steering lock system may be required to start the engine. In this case, perform the following procedure. So ladies and gentlemen, when you disconnect the battery, you actually have to turn the push button ignition switch to the off position, and it tells you what you need to do. And it also says you got to open and close the driver's door and then wait 10 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, how often are we disconnecting the battery to do repairs on a vehicle? Quite often. But are you doing this initialization of the steering lock system? Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is in the owner's manual. Look what else the owner's manual says. Do not attach any accessories, labels, or stickers other than properly placed inspection stickers to the windshield, because these items may obstruct your view. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a vehicle that comes in and you notice that they've got some things on their windshield, you may want to point this out to them in the owner's manual. Remember, what are consumers looking for? Consumers are looking for three things when they deal with a shop: trust, empathy, and direction. Ladies and gentlemen, reviewing this owner's manual with a customer is a great way to gain that Subaru vehicle owner's trust. Now, look what else is in the owner's manual, ladies and gentlemen. Check this out. It says, if your vehicle is involved in an accident, be sure to inspect the ground under the vehicle before restarting the engine. If you find that fuel has leaked on the ground, do not try to restart the engine. The fuel system has been damaged and is in need of repair. So again, ladies and gentlemen, going on below this, right below that box, look what it says. Your vehicle has a fuel pump shutoff system. When the vehicle sustains an impact in an accident, the fuel pump shutoff system stops supplying fuel. However, depending on the impact conditions at the time of a collision, the fuel pump shutoff system may not operate. Perform the following procedures. So ladies and gentlemen, if you have a Subaru that gets towed into your shop that it will not start after an accident, I would encourage you that this might be one of the first things you check, and then it may actually take and need to be redone so the vehicle will start properly. Now, here's another thing that I found in the owner's manual that I think is important to you as a shop. It says, this is for Subarus that have eyesight. Now, if you're not familiar with eyesight, I encourage you to go to like YouTube and type in Subaru eyesight, watch the videos that Subaru has out there so you can understand what this feature does. But look what it says here. When cleaning the front windshield, cover the front of the camera casing with paper so it does not collect dust such as copy paper. Affix the paper to prevent glass cleaner from getting on the camera lens. At this point, make sure that the tape's adhesive surface does not come into contact. It says also, when having the inside of the windshield cleaned at a service station, etc., be sure to request that the attendant covers the camera covers. Ladies and gentlemen, I know we all clean the car before we give it back to the consumer. I get that. It's an awesome thing we do. And that's what Subaru wants us to do. Give the customer their car back cleaner when it was. But ladies and gentlemen, you need to make sure that if you have a detail department that's cleaning a Subaru that has eyesight, make sure they don't just go spray window cleaner all over the front of the windshield or cause any problems where the eyesight is at, right? We actually could damage that or cause it not to perform properly. So you need to make sure when we go to clean a Subaru on the windshield, we use precaution. Now, here's another thing I found in Subaru. Yes, sir.
Mike, this is JJ. I just wanted to let everybody know, with the eyesight camera lenses, if anything gets on those lenses, even if it's a fingerprint, they cannot be cleaned and the camera assembly must be replaced.
Could you restate that again, sir?
If anything gets on those lenses, they cannot be cleaned and the camera must be replaced.
Wow.
You can't touch those lenses. You can use compressed air, light compressed air, if it's just dust. But anything else is going to require a camera lens replacement.
Man, that's awesome to know, sir. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, we got to make sure that our cleanup department that cleans cars, we need to make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that we're following these procedures to the T. And that's why, again, researching all of your Subarus through STIS is critical. Thanks for sharing that, sir. Now, our next thing is that we get to where it says Subaru Technical Information System. Now, when I log back in, you're going to see over on the right-hand side, I have a drop-down menu, and that's where I see like the owner's manual, the service manual. Here's something else I found in there, and it's called Tech Tips Newsletter. Now, this can also be found under the What's New tab. If you look over on the left-hand side, it tells me what's new. This is the most recent Tech Tips newsletter. But ladies and gentlemen, I would encourage you to select that, and I would encourage you to start reviewing that with your technicians, right? And by the way, this is published monthly. Now, let me tell you why I think you should take and review this Subaru Tech Tips newsletter monthly with your team. And I'll show you right here. And John, I'm just going to throw this out there. I think this would be a great thing to email to all your certified shops or any shop in the collision repair industry. Because here's some things I found, right? When I went into the November 2018 Tech Tips newsletter, it said air conditioning leak diagnosis revisited. And it said, with today's modern refrigerants, we would also like to remind all technicians that the use of dyes in Subaru air conditioning systems is strictly forbidden. Ladies and gentlemen, understand this. If I know a lot of shops, right? I had it myself. A vehicle comes in with an AC leak, and we put dye in it to look for the leak. You can't do that on a Subaru. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think taking and reading these tech tips, this newsletter from Subaru monthly, is absolutely a must for us. Let me show you what else I found in the Subaru Tech Tips. What it did was, when you go into Tech Tips, it also tells you anything that may have changed in their own repair procedures. So, a lot of times people say, well, Mike, why do I got to research? If I did 5 Subarus last week, why do I need to research it again this week if it's just a bumper cover? Well, ladies and gentlemen, here's what I would tell you. You need to log into STIS. And when you log into that, go into the Tech Tips. And why do I want to do that? Because it tells me anything highlighted in yellow. I did not highlight this. This is what it looked like in Tech Tips. It tells me, you know what? We made a change on this. So make sure you're always looking for that in the Tech Tips publication. Now, as we try to wrap this up here in the next 10 to 15 minutes, and Tracy said we do have some questions, what do you do if you can't find what you're looking for? Well, the first thing is, as a collision repair professional, make sure you exhaust your search of the service manuals. If you can't find what you're looking for, go into STIS and put a reasonable effort in there to try to find what you can. But if you can't find what you're looking for, here's what I want to tell you to do. And that is, go back into Subaru, right? STIS, go to the Tech Tips newsletter. You'll see my red arrow right there. Select that. When you go to the Tech Tips newsletter, the last page of every Tech Tips newsletter will have a form that looks like this. And it says, now you can email your Tech Tips input and suggestions to tech@subaru.com. And ladies and gentlemen, this is where if you can't find what you're looking for, or if you disagree with something, or you need clarity on something, it gives you the ability to either A, email Subaru directly, or B, you can actually take this and you can actually mail it to them, right? So at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, I really give a kudos out to Subaru that at the end of every Tech Tips, they give you this form to complete where if you need clarity or something's missing, and knowing John and his team, I absolutely know that they would get back with you in a timely manner. So ladies and gentlemen, if you can't find what you're looking for, go to Tech Tips, download it, and you'll see a form there that you can complete, or you can email tech@subaru.com directly. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a little bit of a summary here of thoughts, and then we'll open it up for a little bit of questions. So one of the things was that after the last webinar, we had some people that sent us some questions in. We submitted those to the team at Subaru, and they were nice enough to answer them for us. So let's just review these very quickly, and then Tracy will open it up for some questions. So the first question is, where does Subaru have their position statements? None of the position statements can be found within STIS. They're located at either OEM1stop.com or crashrepairinfo.com. Number 2, how can a shop find out about recalls? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you would go into Subaru's STIS. You would go to the document that says online reference. From there, you would select publication type and then Subaru product or campaign bulletin. Where can a shop find information about what type of substrate I'm working on? So how do you know if it's like 980 MPa steel or 1500? Anything you want to know about what type of substrate you're working on is going to be found in the body repair manual. Another shop asked, where can we find gap dimensions? You would also find those under the body repair manual. Where would a collision repairer find any welding precautions? Again, you would find that under the body repair manual. So not the service manual, the body repair manual. Where would a collision repairer locate the size and type of welds to be utilized? again, under the body repair manual, as well as the sectioning procedures. So again, the two documents you're going to live in are going to be service manual and the body repair manual. Next question was, does Subaru have a symbol for one-time use parts? Yes, it is going to be a black star like you see on the right-hand side. You see a black star? That is a one-time use part. The only exception would be on the BRZ, and they would use a black dot, which is the same symbol that Toyota uses. The next question was, do any of the Subaru vehicles have the ability to be connected to the internet, right? Somebody actually referenced and they said GM's OnStar, Toyota Safety Connect. Yes, however, it will depend on the vehicle. Now, Subaru's version of like OnStar is referred to as Starlink. And if you want to find any information about Starlink, you would go into the service manual and look up telematics. One of the other questions we had for Subaru, and they were nice enough to answer, was, will the Starlink system email the customer if there's a problem with the vehicle or a DTC? And the answer is yes. If the customer has an active subscription, it will notify them via email. If their subscription isn't active, then the DTC will be stored until it's cleared. So ladies and gentlemen, that's even more important why we should do a post-repair scan to ensure that all of the DTCs have been cleared or at least addressed with the consumer. So the next question was, well, if I'm working on a vehicle and I take the headlight out or the door handle off, I don't want the customer being notified from Subaru because they might be upset with me. Well, you're right. So you would have to disable the system first. So we asked Subaru, how do you do that? And Subaru gave us a pretty detailed explanation here. And it says the DCM telematics module does not transmit DTCs or illuminate the warning lamp despite of backup operation when it's off. So basically, when you turn this feature off, then what happens is it won't, transmit data to Subaru, who might in turn get in touch with the customer. And then Subaru gave us a process here for how to do that. So before you start taking the car apart, if it's subscribed to Subaru Starlink, we need to make sure we disconnect the DCM connector and then leave it in that condition until repair is done. And then once you reassemble the vehicle, you will have to clear the memory. It says perform the clear memory at the first ignition on, e.g. off, timing right after the repair. So ladies and gentlemen, again, what I will tell you is, ladies and gentlemen, is this is something that you really want to drill into Subaru's STIS to make sure that you're familiar with this, right? So at the end of the day, it also says to clear memory, Denso's DST-I, Diagnostic System Tester Interface, should be used because some of Subaru's exclusive systems, such as EyeSight, accepts commands from this. So ladies and gentlemen, here's what I'm going to tell you. If you're using a generic or aftermarket scan tool to do anything at all with some of this telematics modules, it actually could create a problem. All right, let's move on from this. Next question was, we had this for the Subaru team, is what's the name, cost, and other information regarding Subaru's scan tool? So Subaru calls their factory scan tool a Subaru Select Monitor 4. You also notice that they use an abbreviation for this, SSM4. Now, I will tell you, that's a great term to put into your search feature of the Subaru STIS because it will help you pull up all the different things you may have to use a scan tool for, which helps you to justify your case to an insurer. The cost is for the tool, for the Subaru Select Monitor scan tool, is $3,200, and then it's $2,700 a year for the software subscription. Also, the question was, does Subaru require battery support when checking DTCs or scan a vehicle? And the answer is yes. So keep this in mind, ladies and gentlemen. When you start thinking about scan times, number one is you have to pull the vehicle in. You have to allow the vehicle to get to operating temperature. We then have to hook up battery support, right? That's to make sure it has a full charge before we do any diagnostics with a scan tool on it. Now, Subaru recognizes a tool or piece of equipment that's called a Midtronics GR8. I will tell you that there's 5 other car manufacturers that also recommend having a Midtronics GR8. If I'm a collision repair today, I would absolutely purchase a Midtronics GR8, and I would be utilizing that anytime I scan a vehicle. Another question was, what additional equipment might be needed to perform these operations? If you have a vehicle with EyeSight and it requires calibration, it does require the use of a target. And the next question was, where can you purchase the scan tool, or where can you purchase these targets? And you will see here that Subaru provided a website for us. So shout out to Subaru for making it accessible to any collision repairer. And the prices range between $141 to $345. Next question was, does the Subaru Select Monitor, their scan tool, integrate with Subaru's own repair procedures? And the answer is yes, it integrates with the service manual. So one of the cool things about Subaru's scan tool is that has a keyboard on it. So by having that keyboard, I can now research DTCs and interact with a service manual as opposed to an aftermarket scan tool. Does a Subaru Select Monitor Scan tool provide the build data? And the answer is yes. One of the things I would tell you is, people are always talking to me, well, Mike, I can use an aftermarket scan tool. Well, let me ask you a question. Does your aftermarket scan tool have access to the build data? And the answer is no. N-O, no. Does Subaru publish any type of monthly or quarterly newsletters for shops that fix their vehicles? We already covered that today, and the answer is yes. And it's called Tech Tips, and you can access that via STIS, Subaru's own website, and you can download it as a PDF. The next question is, does STIS, Subaru's own repair procedures, does it tie into the VIN number? And yes, it does. Subaru is one of the few OEMs that their own repair procedures are tied into that specific VIN number, and we really give a shout out to Subaru for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we do a little polling question for you, we'd like to open it up to Tracy. So, Tracy, do you have some questions for us from some of the attendees?
Yeah, we do have a few questions. So one of the questions from Ron at Boss was, does Subaru require destructive test welding, and where can you find documentation on that?
What I can tell you is I did not personally find anything within Subaru's OEM repair procedures that stated that Subaru destructive test welding was required. But I will allow John and his team to answer that, and maybe even Rick Miller, if Rick Miller's with us from Wadsworth.
Hey, Mike, it's Rick. Good afternoon. Yes, we do require the destructive testing of both MIG and spot welding.
Thank you, Rick. And Rick, Rick, we're so delighted to have you on the call with us today, Rick. So thanks for taking the time to join us. So just to reassure that, the answer from Subaru is that yes, Subaru does require destructive test welding for any welding that's going to be performed on the vehicle. Would that be accurate, sir?
Yes, absolutely. And we'll be inspecting for proof of that process as well.
All right, thank you. And Rick, this is a question just for me. I know some shops often ask me is, how long do they need to save those destructive West panels for, or can they actually take a photo of it, and if they have it documented in their file through a QC app or something, would that be okay? Or do they need to save them for a period of time, or does that remain to be determined, sir?
No, a photo version is fine as long as it's a clear version, and we actually encourage the photo to be scanned and then sent to the file so that we can have a review of the file if we pull it as a closed repair order file, so we can actually go and look at some history.
Oh, so Rick, thanks so much for that. And you know, just as a collision repair guys and girls on the webinar, I would encourage you to use an electronic control checklist. You know, and like CCC has their checklist. And the reason I like that is because if you do submit a photo, it date and time stamps it. And so I just think that's more valid for you should you ever end up in court for any reason. So Rick, thanks for the answer. But more importantly, Tracy, I'm not sure who asked that question, but that was a great question. So thank you. What else do we have, ma'am?
So Owens at First Certified Collision Centers was wondering if Subaru has a definition of what is a severe accident, such like when the airbags don't deploy. Is it based on rate of speed or something else?
So I think I'll jump in there before John and his team may answer, but you know, I think that what you noted, what we've seen in all of Subaru's STIS is they don't say a severe accident. They say even if it's a minor accident. So there's nowhere that I have found in STIS where it's STIS where it says if it's a severe accident, do this. Everything I've found says that even if it's a minor accident, you need to do it. So I don't think that's really an issue with Subaru because they recognize and say even if it's a minor accident. But that would be my insight. And I don't know if John or you or your team or Rick, if you have any insights on that as well, sir.
Yeah, I think we agree. Yeah, we don't have as far as that we don't have a definition for severe accident, but I think what you stated is accurate.
Yep, so great question. And again, whoever that was, Tracy, that texted you that question, feel free to text them my cell phone number and I'll be glad to talk to them about that offline. What other questions do we have, Tracy?
Perfect. So Robert Shepler says that he's had some dealerships tell him that if there's no mill or DTC, then the calibrations aren't required. And he was wondering, what is Subaru's method of educating their dealerships?
So I'll go ahead and take a stab at that first. You know, I think a lot of dealerships and service advisors are misinformed or uneducated. And I can tell you from a collision repair perspective that if I had a service advisor or dealership tell an insurance company or my consumer that, I would go back to them and show them Subaru's position statement and say, I'm sorry, but I do think you're inaccurate on this. and I would educate them because it sounds like someone's uneducated. But I guess, John, the question would be is, do you think Subaru in the future may do any like internal communications to dealerships to educate them that should they get contacted by an insurer or a collision repair, that scans are required regardless of whether there's an airbag deployed or a dash light, sir?
Yeah, we do, and we try. We try to be consistent with our dealerships, the same as we are our certified collision centers. So yeah, it's tough because not everybody reads what they're supposed to read. So we do our best. But yeah, our message is consistent though. It's across the board.
Yeah, you're always going to want to refer to the published service information, follow the procedures in there. If the service information says to perform an inspection, it should absolutely be performed.
Okay, thank you. Next question, Tracy.
This one's more generic. It's from Scott at Mr. B's Paint and Body, and he's asking if, in your opinion, you're going to see more OEMs change language from suggested or recommended to require in their position statement.
So I'm going to go ahead and take that question because I don't think it's fair to ask John to comment on other OEMs. So I'll take that question. And Scott, by the way, hello to you and greetings to your father as well, sir. So Scott, one of the things you need to understand is with some of the Asian manufacturers, without naming any names, you have to understand what their culture is, right? So in certain countries and certain OEMs, like for example, in Japan, for example, if someone was to say they were your boss or they were your father, and they said, look, Scott, I recommend you do that. You have to remember, like most of your Asian cultures, they're a very polite society. So they feel that if they were to tell you this is required, you must do this, they feel it's demeaning and it's kind of very rude. Right? So they're always going to defer to the politest way of telling you to do that. So when you see an OEM position statement that says we recommend you to do this, that's just because the culture of that OEM is that they're not rude. They're very polite, and we probably can learn something from that, right? And so what they do is they just say, we recommend you do this, because in the a lot of your Asian cultures, you will see that, for example, that when your parent or your boss tells you to do that, you just do it because you respect them. They don't have to be that strong suited. So I don't feel it's fair to pose that question to the team at Subaru. So that's my insight on that from working with other vehicle manufacturers. So again, it's not that they don't believe it's be done. It's just their culture is a very polite culture, and they're not going to use a strong word like that. They're going to state. But I will also tell you that there are a lot of myths out there that everybody thinks that the OEMs say recommend in their OEM position statements. And I got to tell you, I've seen the word recommended used from a couple OEMs in regards to pre-scans, but there's not one OEM manufacturer that I've seen that uses the word recommend. Every OEM that I've seen on position statements, so I would encourage you to revisit those. When it comes to the post-repair scan, they don't use the word recommend. They might use it on the pre, not the post. The post, they'll either say must or mandatory. So hopefully that helps you, Scott. If not, feel free to give me a call. I know you have my number. Next question, Tracy.
This is the last one. We have a couple of shops that have asked if Subaru recognizes the use of the Aztec device.
So I think it's important that everybody understands that the Aztec is not a scan tool. It is a connecting device that connects to factory scan tools at their headquarters in Plano, Texas, or Jacksonville. But I believe, John, if I'm not mistaken, you guys actually do recognize Aztec in your position statement. Is that accurate, sir?
Yeah, that's correct. We recognize Aztec not only in the position statement, but also that's one of the options of a scan device to be a certified collision center. So it's either the SSM 4 or the Aztec, which connects to the SSM 4. So yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Tracy. Any other questions?
Nope, that was the last one.
Well, John, is there any last announcements or anything you'd like to provide? I know recently in the press, you guys have released that you're going to be opening up the Subaru certification process, possibly to independent shops. And just anything you'd like to share on that as an update, sir?
Yeah, I just want to kind of spread the word that we've been getting questions for a while, and we've been kind of finalizing stuff internally. It's taken us a little bit to roll out because we're trying to get all of our retailers on board first, and we've been spending the past 6 or 7 months, and we finally got to the point where we're ready to move forward. And so we had a press release yesterday officially that January 1st, 2019, we'll be accepting independents into the collision network. And if anybody on the line is interested or would like more information, you can email us at info@SubaruCertifiedCollision.com. and we'll be happy to get back to you and let you know. And we're collecting information. We have like a waiting list, information list, and we'll put you on there. We'll get some basic info from you and let you know. And as soon as January 1st rolls around, we'll be sending out an email blast to all you guys.
John, appreciate that. So ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap this up in the next 2 or 3 minutes, you'll see that we just launched a poll. You know, all of the OEMs are kind enough to donate their time to help us to build this webinar content and provide it to you free of charge, as well as we make it available for you for free on YouTube at no cost. But we want to make sure that you, the attendees, are getting value out of this so we can decide if we want to continue doing this in 2019. But we also want to be able to give feedback to Subaru as to if we gave you value and represented their brand properly. So if you take a few moments to take our poll, we greatly appreciate it. In addition, ladies and gentlemen, somebody had texted me in. They asked me, well, exactly who was Rick Miller? So Rick Miller is actually with Wadsworth International, and they are actually the third-party company that actually manages and helps Subaru to oversee their program. Would that be a fair and accurate description, Rick?
Yes, that would be fair. We're doing the on-site assessments as well. So we'll be the communication hub and also the in-field auditors as well.
Okay, well, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I've known Rick for a number of years. Rick is an honest, ethical, just a stand-up guy, and I appreciate the dedication to excellence that he brings to our industry. So it looks like we've got about 44% of people voted. If everyone could just take a few more seconds to vote there for us, we would greatly appreciate it. Do you feel more comfortable navigating the website after this webinar? And we would just appreciate it so we can give that feedback back to Subaru. And most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, please know on behalf of Collision Advice, but more importantly, we just want to give a shout out, John, to you and your team. You're always so accessible to the industry and you support us. And we just want to tell you, sir, that we really appreciate you. And at the end of the day, we just want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas. So thanks for attending the webinar, and we hope to cross paths with you soon. John, Rick, to you and your team, JJ, everybody, thank you so much and have a great day.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having us.